Welcome back, Richard. It is good to see you once again, my friend.
Good to be back, back at it.
Back, always getting back at it.
Right.
And today we have we're going to talk about a topic that was somebody wrote in and asked us, and the question that was asked is a very interesting question, and it's one that I think deserves a little bit of time, and that is, okay, so I had a breakdown of some sort. I had a mental breakdown, or I had an emotional episode or mood episode. Now what? What do I do after I had a mental breakdown and I'm working to kind of get back into my life and back into the swing of things? And so it's a great question because people oftentimes come into therapy. And then as therapy is winding down, or we're getting to a place where therapy can conclude, they don't know what to do next. They don't know what comes
Exactly.
next. And so
And I had never really thought about this in the way this question was posed. And we think about it all the time, but not in this particular way. And I got to thinking about it, and I thought, well, certainly, a person goes through a divorce or a death or some trauma, a move, a job change, and you go to therapy and you sort of work things out. But how do you stay healthy?
mhm,
How do you maintain that progress
right,
after the therapy is over?
right,
Um, and it's really an interesting question. And I've never actually structured my thinking about what should the plan be.
right,
So if you do some therapies, for example, neurofeedback or TMS or ketamine, there are some treatments that work, and then you need to get a booster. You
right.
know, immunizations where they work, but then you need to get a booster to keep them working.
Mhm.
And we don't typically think in terms of boosters in this field. So it really is an interesting question and a valuable question. We thought, let's look into this and see what would be reasonable to recommend after therapy ends.
Right. So as we think about it, there's a few things, a few maybe rules that we can talk about as far as what to do now that are through the breakdown or through the whatever mental health crisis or issue that you were having. Now what? I think that the first thing, that maybe the first rule, if we want to think about it that way, is to avoid the issues that got you there in the first place. Don't
Right.
go back. When you talk about someone who is in like substance abuse recovery or alcohol recovery, one of the main recommendations is you have to watch out and avoid some of those environments or circumstances, setting based factors
Yeah.
that contributed to the use in the first place. You can't be working with AA and working to stay sober, but still go to the same bar that you went to and still hang out with the same people that you always drank with and everything. You have to avoid some of those things that contributed to the use and everything from before. So the same thing would be with anything else. You have to avoid some of those things that contributed to the breakdown to begin with.
Right. With AA or any recovery program, just imagine you go to rehab, people talk about rehab, you go to rehab for 30 days, you get discharged, and you go right back to your old friends who are doing drugs and drinking and well, or you go back to your same bar and sit on the same stool.
Right.
I mean, we all saw Cheers. We all remember the TV show Cheers. So you go back to the bar, and what do you think is going to happen?
Right.
So what you're advised to do is you make new friends and you have new activities. Okay. It's the same with marriage. We tell couples this in marriage counseling all the time
Right.
that you can fix the problems that are damaging your relationship. But once you fix those problems, if you go back to the same marriage, if you go
Right.
back to the same habits, the same routines, guess what's going to happen? You're going to be back in couples therapy. That didn't work. So I'm going to ask you to build a new marriage that has a better chance of surviving. The old one broke. The old one is
Right.
broken. Don't go back to the old marriage just because you've gone to marriage counseling. That last step is you have to build a new marriage. And it's
Yeah.
the same with this, that once you're finished with therapy, don't go back to what got you here,
Right.
okay? And build something new
Right.
schedule, new routines, new friends.
And that may mean, and it's something that we sort of advocate very often is, we talked about substance abuse recovery. We talked about, after couples or marriage counseling.
Mhm.
But even if you're talking about, you've been through therapy because of depression or anxiety or something that's related more personally, you have to do the same thing. You have to avoid those things and watch out for those landmines that got you there in the first place. And so,
Right.
I don't know how. I'm still trying to find an effective, clear way to encourage people that, if you are unhappy with something in your life, if your job is so stressful and so overwhelming or so boring and so ineffective that it's causing you distress, find a new job. I'm not saying quit your job and just
Right.
go and do, whatever, but work to change that process, work to
Right.
change that aspect of your life. Because the more that you sit in that discomfort, that distress, the more it's going to have an effect on you.
Right.
And it's inevitable that you're going to be right back where you were. Even after all this work that you've done, you can be right back where you were if you're going right back to the same place that caused the problem to begin with.
That's right. The therapy, I mean, here's this got you to the therapist's office.
Right.
You know, you can do all the therapy in the world, but if you don't deal with the cause, you're not going to fix the problem.
And watch out for this idea of, well, I'm really depressed about my job, and so I need to be on antidepressants.
Right. Right.
Think
Right.
about what that means. It's like saying, I know that eating all of this cake every day is giving me diabetes, so I'm just going to keep taking the insulin instead of changing what you're eating. You
Mhm.
know, it's sort of the same thing. You're going to stay with these bad habits that are causing you all this distress, and you
Right.
could just take medication, or you'd rather, just maybe it's even continue in therapy beyond what you really need, just because you don't want to experience the change or the stress that comes with change, for some of these things in your life. And so, you know, don't go back to, again, rule one, don't go back to where you were that got you there in the first place.
Right. That's right. So that's rule number one. Rule number two is you have to learn how to communicate effectively.
Right.
This is a huge problem. We talked earlier in a previous podcast about cooperating when you're going through a co-parenting situation,
Right.
how important communication is. Communication cannot be underestimated, the contribution it's going to make to everything.
Right.
And one of the things we have to remember is that we're all taught how to talk, but none of us are ever taught how to listen.
Right.
Okay, we are not taught how to listen, but it's a skill we need to develop. When you are talking to others, you have to avoid, especially, for example, in a divorce, or if you're dealing with children, or if you're dealing with a coworker or a boss, avoid words like never and always.
Yeah.
Just take them out of your vocabulary, because it's never it's never true all the time. And it always causes problems. When you use those absolutes like never and always, it always is going to cause you a problem. Okay, so start by getting rid of never and always.
Absolutely. And it's the way, because the way that you communicate about it is also the way that you feel about it. And so if you, I have a man that I was been working with recently, and one of the things he tends to say is, this has happened my entire life, and this, using those same definitives, it's always like this, and this never happens for me, and so I keep pointing it out to him when it happens, because if you're saying it that way, that means that you believe it to be that way. And if you believe it to be that way, then it's going to cause you more distress. It's going to, again, get you right back to where you were. If you get stuck in traffic on your way to work and you think, oh my gosh, this happens to me every single day, every time that I'm doing this,
Right.
it's going to get you right back into those trenches. that you have worked so hard to get out of, it's going to put you right back there, because that's the way that you're communicating it, not just to other people, but also to yourself. And the more that we talk to ourselves about these things, the more that we believe it, and the more that we find examples to make it true.
That's right. And the other thing we ask you to do, we encourage people to do, is before you start talking, especially if you're angry or emotional or sad or whatever your emotion is, first of all, what is your purpose in communicating?
Yeah.
Do you just want to vent? Do you just want to complain?
Right.
Or do you want to change something? I mean, figure out what you want to do. What is my purpose in communicating? And then construct your sentences carefully. Avoid these trigger words like never and always. But first of all, think about what you're trying to communicate.
Mhm.
What is my purpose in saying? Napoleon said, if you can't improve on silence, perhaps you should stay quiet.
Mhm.
And I think we should all heed that. So first of all, think about what is my purpose in communicating.
Yeah.
There's a nice article. In fact, Bernie, you investigated these Coursera courses some years ago, didn't you? Yeah. And there's a nice Coursera course on communication, and they distill it to the 5 C's.
Right.
Communication should be clear, correct, be honest, complete, concise, and compassionate. And
Right.
if you follow those 5 C's, you're going to minimize communication problems. So first of all, what is your purpose? And then when you put those words together, make sure you follow the 5 C's.
Absolutely. We'll put a link in the show notes for that
Right.
that location. So
Mhm.
now rule 3, so communicate clearly is a personal thing, but it's also an interpersonal thing, how you're interacting with other people. Rule 3 really is for yourself, and the next couple actually are for yourself. But rule 3 is about creating rhythms. And we've talked about this a number of times in other contexts, but it is so important that you think about how your body works and how your body wants a rhythm. That your body likes to go to bed at about the same time every night. It likes to get up at about the same time every day. It likes to be doing something like a similar routine, similar pattern, similar schedule every day. Your body falls into those rhythms very nicely. Now, when you're changing rhythms, when you're going from an unhealthy rhythm to a healthy rhythm, that can be challenging sometimes, that change in rhythms. But just the very fact that changing rhythms like that is difficult tells you how much your body likes rhythms. It doesn't differentiate healthy ones from unhealthy ones, but that's up for you to decide sort of cognizantly. But your body needs a rhythm. And so after you've gone through, this mental breakdown, or you've worked through therapy and you've done all of these things, you have to get into a healthy rhythm.
Right. If I made New Year's resolutions, I don't, you reach a point where you realize that you shouldn't.
Yeah.
But if I did New Year's resolutions, 2024 would be, please get rhythms. Please establish rhythms. There's something in biology. There's something about animals, from insects to, if you want to think of humans as the top, but the way we treat each other, I'm not sure that we deserve that spot anymore. But we all have rhythms, and nature has rhythms. There's the day-night cycle. Our brains produce very characteristic waveforms, patterns, rhythms, seasons. We have these seasons of the year. If you're in school, you think in terms of semesters. If you're in college, there's spring, fall, spring, and summer. And it comes and goes. If you eat, you should eat at about the same time every day. Get your internal digestive system accustomed to being in this pattern. Okay, sleeping is the same thing. Try to stay in rhythm. Most of us I used to run every day, but I used to run every morning. But it was just my best time to exercise. So pick your best time.
Right.
People complain about Mondays, and I'm beginning to think, and I have absolutely no evidence for this, I'm beginning to think that people have trouble on Monday because they've gone off schedule on
Mhm.
Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Right.
Go to bed later, you eat differently, you might drink more, you might wear yourself out doing yard work. Your schedule, your rhythms change on weekends, and your body is in shock on Monday,
Yeah.
and you have to sort of recover. So Monday becomes a very difficult day.
Yeah.
So get into rhythm, find out what your rhythms are, and listen to those rhythms. Start to get some structure in your life.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, rule four is another really important rule, and again, something that we've talked about before, and that is, and kind of related to rule one, and that is avoid and manage better manage your stress.
Right.
Um, stress. I was talking to a couple about this yesterday. Stress is stress is a physiological thing. It's an engineering term, but it's a physiological thing. It is a reaction that your body has to something either internal or external that's happening to your body. So it could be thoughts, or it could be, you got hit with something. All of that creates stress in your body, but it's the same stress. No matter what the cause, your body is responding in a very characteristic, similar way, whether it's a physical thing or a mental and emotional thing.
Right.
One of the things that we can do, we need to do, is to identify stress, especially things that cause distress, negative stress, bad stress, and try to avoid those things or try to find better ways to cope and deal with those things. You know, sometimes when things are going really good in our life, you think about couples who, they just get married, or they just found out that they're pregnant, they're going to have a baby. Those are great things that happen and cause a lot of happiness, but they cause a lot of stress.
Right.
They call it eustress, eustress. That's good stress, positive stress, but it's still stress nonetheless. It causes the same reaction in your body. And so, regardless of how the stress is getting there, the more stress you are, the more difficulty you're going to have. So you need to figure out a way to either avoid some of those negative stressors, or at least figure out how to cope with them in a better way.
Yeah, invariably when people come into our offices, they ask for strategies to deal with their stress. That's typically what people say. Well, I need some strategies to deal with my stress, and so we pause, we hit the pause button and say, well, let's figure out. I would advise you to start by avoiding what's creating the stress in the first place. And
Right.
and if I may take a minute, we did this last night. My son and I were returning to Lakeland, and his wife wanted to have a particular drink that you got at this place, and they had a drive-through. Well, I'm notorious. My family will tell you I don't do drive-throughs. I don't like to order anything in my. I don't like to wait in line in a car. I always park, go into the store. For some reason, I don't mind waiting in line in the store. I don't. I do mind. And it stresses me. When I sit in my car and wait for people in front of me to get their special orders, I get stressed. So I said, well, then avoid that. Don't get into the drive-through. If it's going to make you, if it's going to make you crazy, if it's going to make you this angry, if it's going to do this to you, then don't go to drive-throughs. Okay.
Right.
So first of all, and we had a good laugh about that because I told my son to listen to this podcast because we're going to be talking about this. Start by avoiding stress. Do what you need to do. If you don't like rushing around at the last minute, if that causes stress, then don't rush. I'd rather sit at the airport for an hour rather than wonder if I can get out of this traffic jam on the interstate highway that gets to the airport.
Right.
So I go early and then I'm not stressed. So do whatever you can to avoid stress. If you can't, then you have to learn how to douse it. You have to learn how to deal with it. That's called de-escalation. And there are many strategies that professionals can give you about how to de-escalate when you do find yourself getting stressed. Some stress is unavoidable. Eustress, the good stress, is unavoidable, but you still have to manage it. I mean, you don't want it to get out of hand.
Yeah.
Distress, you always want to deal with. And there are tactics for dealing with that.
Right.
But
Well,
this thing is,
yeah, and as you said, eustress is not necessarily avoidable, but you don't want to avoid those things. You don't want to say, okay, well, let's not get married, or let's not. you want those things, and because those things are positive, but you
Right.
just have to recognize that what's happening is they're causing stress, which makes you more susceptible and more influenced by other stressors. And so you have all this stuff going on that's wonderful in your life. You're moving,
Mhm.
you're getting married, you're having a baby, you have a new job, and you have to move to a new place. Maybe these great things are happening, but that's going to make it much easier for you to get overwhelmed and frustrated by some of the other stressors, that maybe the not so positive stressors in your life. And so you just have to be cognizant of that and manage it.
Right.
Presumably through therapy, you have learned how to manage some of those things, or you've learned how to cope with some of that stuff. So now just identify what they are and deal with them in a healthier way. Now,
Right.
rule five is, and our last rule is, kind of related to rhythms, and it's related to, avoiding managing stress. It's related to a lot of the other things, but it's getting back to those core things that we harp on all the time. And that is paying attention to what you're eating, how much you're sleeping, and what exercise that you are doing. We had a whole podcast, a whole couple of podcasts, maybe a month or two ago, about the importance of exercising. It is in many cases just as effective as medication at relieving stress and relieving depressive symptoms and preventing depressive symptoms. It's just as effective as many of your antidepressants. So,
Right.
get back into those kinds of rhythms of eating healthy, sleeping well, and exercising regularly.
When we talk about these three, we talk about these three all the time. Again, this is in response to the question of how do I stay healthy?
Right.
Well, once again, if you've had a crisis, whether it's a temporary setback or you're dealing with a more chronic, persistent problem, if you don't change some things,
Mm-hmm.
probably not going to stay healthy. I mean, there's a reason why you got here. Okay. So always consider nutrition, sleep, and exercise. There's a reason. There must be. We don't know this. I guess there is probably some research on this topic. Why do we have this epidemic of IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, and celiac, and food sensitivities? There is something about the food that we're eating that's creating these sorts of problems.
Right.
I don't pretend to know what it is, but I do know that there are certain substances, certain foods that should be avoided. We know that processed foods, we know that high sugar, high fats, we already have identified many of these culprits. We probably shouldn't use plastic bottles anymore. I mean, there certainly is enough evidence. So do a little bit of research, talk to people, listen to podcasts, find out what you should be avoiding.
Right.
I don't know what it is for you, but find out. I mean, somebody told me the other day that she discovered that some strange that potatoes or something, and she suddenly found out that she had no idea. This is an adult, had
Yeah.
no idea she's allergic to potatoes. Figure out what you should avoid.
Mm-hmm.
There are some things that all of us should avoid: high sugar diets, high fat diets. But then also, what should you be consuming? What should you put in your body to
Mm-hmm.
keep your body healthy? All right.
Right.
That
And
takes a little bit of research. It's not rocket science. I mean, this information's available.
right, yeah, and a lot of it is just paying attention to your body. If after you eat a certain thing you feel lousy, maybe avoid eating those things, even if it's delicious, and even if you love it.
Right.
um maybe avoid it, or at least cut back on it so that it doesn't have as profound of an effect on you. But
Right.
it's the same thing with sleep. Different
Exactly.
the
Mhm.
recommendations for sleep are pretty, people try to make it very cut and dry. Oh, you should have 8 to 10 hours of sleep every night. Now, that may be ideal, but the reality is it doesn't necessarily work for everyone. Now, you and I are horrible when it comes to this, because we got here at 4 and 5 o'clock this morning, and we're going to record. And I don't know about you, but I went to bed at about 11 o'clock last night, and so I got a good 4 or 5 hours.
Bernie, don't tell all of our secrets.
I'm telling it, I'm laying it all out there. But how that's how our body functions right now. And we're working. I know that. Well, I'll say I'm working. I know that you've
Oh,
said
we are.
to try to change that and to do better with that, because we do recognize that it requires an effort and it's hard to do to address those issues. But, you know, if I was having the problem where I was falling asleep in the afternoon, or I couldn't concentrate or focus by the time lunch came around, then my goodness, I would have to change something right away. Now, my body's functions okay right now with what I'm doing, and so I'm managing it. But you have to know what your body needs. I
Right.
love it when I hear people say, "Oh no, I have to have 8 hours of sleep a night, or I have to have at least this amount of sleep a night." That's great because you know what you need, and you
Right.
make sure that that happens. You know,
Right.
you can't say, "Oh no, I have to have 8 hours of sleep every night," and then only get 4 hours of sleep
Mhm.
consistently. No, you have to change something to fix that problem. And so you have to know what works for you and what your body needs.
Right. If you're tired, if you don't feel good, if you have joint pain, no matter what it is, if you're not feeling pretty good most days, you're not gonna feel good every day. But if you don't feel pretty good every day, something is wrong somewhere.
Right.
So I would always begin with nutrition, sleep, and exercise.
Mhm.
As you said, exercise is the new medication. Um, you have to know your body, and the more rhythm, we talked about rhythms earlier, the more rhythms you have, that you do things at about the same time in the same way, you're going to start feeling better. You eat
Absolutely.
healthy, you sleep well, exercise, you're going to feel better. You have to be willing to make these changes. If you want to stay healthy, then you're going to have to do things like these five, we call them five rules, but five guidelines,
Mm.
to keep yourself healthy, both physically and mentally. Because if you're not well mentally, you're not going to feel good. If you don't feel good physically, you're not going to feel good emotionally. So the two work together.
Absolutely. All right. We hope that that helps as you, maybe coming back and recovering through whatever emotional or mental breakdown you may have had, or whatever challenge that you may have had, and you're trying to get back to life and certainly avoid getting back to that place again. Hopefully these 5 rules or guidelines are helpful. But we encourage people to write in if you have any questions, or if you have something that you'd like for us to talk about. Please, message us through YouTube, or through there's all kinds of links in our show notes for ways to get in touch with us, and we will do our best to address those things. So that's it for today. Until next time. Stay happy, stay healthy, and forget to be afraid.